Okay, my name is George, middle initial P, Nuwago. Born and raised Red Cliff, been here for the most part of my life. I get to tell you, I am the manager of the transfer station, which is the dump for the tribe. But I've held positions in this tribe from the ground floor, from the bottom, from the very bottom to the very top. I've been the tribal chairman, I've been the vice chairman, I've been council member, I've been the garbage, the dump. So I've held jobs all the way in between that. I'm even the bus driver for the local transit. And then I'll tell people the stories about what I did with regard to my friend Tom, big and burly up in front. Myself and Marvin, you'll meet Marvin tomorrow, or if you met him already, you probably met him. But Marvin, he and I went around to every tribal leader, and we identified the tribal leaders and spiritual people in those communities, gave them tobacco. And they came here to Red Cliff to my mother's house. And during that time, and I don't know if you recall what was going on, but everybody was trying to push us to sell our treaty rights. So we had a ceremony here in Red Cliff, and they're all at my mother's house. And we had spiritual leaders and tribal leaders there. And we had a big feast out, okay? So we talked about all these things. We talked about all the treaties. And we talked about all the purpose and the intent of those, okay? So we were directed to do certain things, myself and Guy Oshkosh, and we took certain items out to Washington, D.C., and we met with Daniel anyway. At that time, he was the Inter-Tribal Governmental Affairs thing, Indian Committee. All right, so we met with him in his office. We smoked pipes in his office, and we said we had to do that. And when we did that, the discussion of selling our treaty rights ended right there at that moment. It closed the door on it all. But those are all the things that we did along that time. And when they argued the case in the Supreme Court, that's where I told Mark, the attorney that argued it, I told him, I said, this isn't about a piece of paper. This is about our life. This is about our being. This is our guarantee. That's what our ancestors gave us, is they gave us our life. Because hunting, fishing, gathering, that's our life. And if you look at it from that perspective, it's not about a piece of paper, it's not about treaty. It's about who we are. It's our life. So when I go, if I were to go and research that, I would find that in his statement, because he used it, because I sat right there and I heard him use it. I thought, that's pretty good. So I did a little bit of good in my life. But you know, we got all these young people standing around, they don't take the time, they don't take the effort, it's about priority, what's important to you. And we're not so different than anybody else. Because I've been to Canada. I'm probably one of the only natives from Wisconsin, United States, went to Canada and brought a moose back across the border without a hunting license. They gifted it to me. We went up and killed it, and they gifted it to me. I brought it back across the border. Did that 7 times. So everybody told me it wouldn't be done. You can't do that. I said, all right. So we did it right. We took gifts. There's 117 people in that community. We took gifts to every one of those people. And we asked permission from the elders if we could hunt on their land. Yes, you can hunt on our land. Now we got little sugar bushes all over. People tapping trees by their houses. 10 taps, you know. You make maple syrup. It's good. We live right here by one of the most beautiful, most precious, valuable pieces of resource in the world, Lake Superior. And not only do we have to have safeguards against that for climate change, but there's a lot of people that aren't getting any water. And when you have a big bathtub of water, people are going to want that. You know, so I mean, that's my concern. I'll say this, and you can put this anywhere and tell anybody. There is not a treaty that has been signed that has given up our rights to that mineral and that resource. None. There's none in existence. And so if we don't all start carrying that torch as Native people, guess what? They're going to start taking your resource. And you're going to have a battle on your hands. And the thing is that we're so reactionary, Native people, it's all about reaction. It's got to be proactive and start buckling it down and saying, hey, we didn't sign that away. We didn't give that to anybody. That belongs to us. What resources are going to be out there in terms of harvesting? How's it going to impact your berries? See, berries cycle any rate. You know, like a couple of years ago, we had so many blueberries you couldn't eat enough of them, right? There were so many. Now 2 years ago, I went to the same place. There was no berries, right? They cycle. But how long is that cycle going to be when it gets too warm? Is it going to be every 8 years? Every other year? I mean, those are questions. I don't know the science about it, but I know that it's taking place, you know? So for those people like my friend who harvests birch bark, what does that do to that? In the struggles birch trees are having right now, how does that impact that? So I mean, you start to look at those things. What does it do to our wild game? So now, does everything push a little bit further north? So I mean, those are questions that I would have. Do we have to go to travel and get that now? What does it do to the rice beds? So I mean, there's a lot of questions that, you know, a lot of times we don't look at that, and people don't say, huh, I don't know. They don't contemplate that.
We're all trying to do our part to make our community sustainable, and part of that sustainability is being able to feed our community and have clean drinking water for our community. Without those two things, you know, this would be a desolate desert where not too many people want to live. You know, so it goes a long way into sovereignty as well as being able to provide those basic needs for health, human safety, and, you know, food, water, and shelter.
For Indigenous people, particularly North America, the concept of discovery is in there. And then so there was a pre-1492 adaptation, and now that we're in a post-1492 adaptation. We always have tried to understand more about what our relationship is in that base that we've had as an Indigenous community. And certainly our worldview is a part of that, and nature is our prism on which we see all the elements of that comprising our worldview, where we fit as human beings and all the various elements in nature. And unfortunately, there's been a tremendous impact in our thinking about our worldview by the 5 M's, the military, the merchant, the missionary, the media, and the man. And that's affected our view of the 5 S's, which is survival, sovereignty, security, self-sustainability, and self-sufficiency. So our adaptation has been around the dynamic matrix of the interaction between both of those. We're still there. We're still adapting.